Francis, you talk about the China. I would like to ask a question that India has gone through a very strong democracy route in last 60 years. China, we don't know what it is. It's communist capitalism. But as you rightly said, that when the people are growing, income are growing, what will happen to China? Because when the wealth comes to person, he wants freedom. And he wants freedom of speech. And when the freedom of speech and freedom of press comes in, will China have to go through what India has gone through for last 60 years of democratic institution? And will they affect Asia? What are your views on that?
In the interest of time, may I propose that we just collect 2 or 3 questions and then just give each of you a sort of last sentence, as it were.
Dinesh Trivedi, Member of Parliament. I'll ask a very quick question to Francis. Do you think we are using this word Islamic fundamentalists and jihad very loosely without really understanding what it means? And by doing that, we are actually helping the guys who have the evil design to come together in the world.
My questions, sir, you just mentioned that good governance can come only within the context of liberal democracy. But in the Indian context, the widely held view is that the root cause of misrule and many other evils of government is coming because of our majoritarian democratic politics. And secondly, most often we hear that the captains of industry, they quote that China is a greater player and a more efficient player in the global economic scenario because it has a communist kind of a government. So what's your view? Is it a kind of a temporary phase? And just quickly say next question that sir mentioned that you have to reinvent this architecture, etc. So do you think the new international economic order experiment of Willy Brandt's time is still relevant today? Thank you.
Right. Well, thank you for those questions. On the question about China, I obviously don't know what is going to happen in China's future. I do know that there will be pressure, I think, for greater participation and recognition of citizens and accountability in that country. But the specific form that accountability takes, I think, will be up to the Chinese to determine themselves, and it will be probably a set of institutions that will be very uniquely tailored to the particular traditions that China has experienced. If you look at democracy that has developed in other Asian countries, in Japan, in Taiwan, in South Korea, they don't really look like American democracy. They don't look like European democracy. They really, I think, are fundamentally democratic in the end product, but the specific institutional form, I think, is tailored to everyone's own historical experience, and I think that's necessary and a good thing. On the question of the terminology about Islamist extremism, I hope Mr. Nair does not think I was bashing Muslims, and in fact, at lunch yesterday, Mr. Khatami said that he actually read the article on which I had taken what I said today from a larger article that Mr. Khatami actually said he agreed with as to the origins of the extremism that we see before us. The terminology, I think, is extremely important because you really are talking about certain very minority positions within the larger world of Islam, and one of the big dangers is tarring the entire civilization or the entire religion with what is clearly a minority position. And so we can discuss, what the right words to use for that are, but I at least want to make that clear. On the question of governance, it's a very good point. You do not have to have democracy to have good governance. I think one of the characteristics of a lot of the East Asian fast developers was that they had authoritarian governments that were developmentally oriented, that had a high degree of technocratic capability, that could keep corruption within certain limits, and therefore promote long-term rapid development. But I also think it's the case that past a certain point, you cannot get good governance unless you have basic accountability, because every authoritarian system eventually screws up, and unless you have a mechanism to correct those mistakes, you're not going to have a good government in the long run. And so therefore, I think that there is, in the end, a certain connection, not permanent and it doesn't apply at all times, but I do think that democracy does have an important role in eventually producing good governance. Thank you.
Can you hear me? Yeah. Just very quickly about China. I've been going to China for 20 years. I go there almost every other week. And I have to tell you that something's very, very unique is happening there. I meet Chinese from all walks of life. I work in some of the villages too. And there is accountability of a different nature. And very few of my Chinese friends talk about democracy. Second point, I think the language is very important. The more we keep using these loaded terms, the more people will get angry. And I think we need to be very careful. That's why I didn't use the T word, the J word, the W word, etc. Language is very important. It provokes emotional response. And too many have used language so cheaply without understanding the implications of of the consequences of how they've used it. Secondly, on good governance, I'll challenge my Indian friends, and I've written a piece about this. You know, when it comes to institutions of delivering what people need, perhaps India has failed. When people can't have toilets, in India and in China, they have solved that problem. I mean, which institutions do you want? And I would say that, you know, the institutions in China, perhaps, and I think that's the point that was being made, perhaps are working a bit better than they are in India. Thank you.